phone because apparently my Mac and the streaming software that I'm using just really doesn't want to work. So, unless I've got really awful internet, which I probably do to be fair, but I'm just going on my phone for a little bit instead and we'll see. I don't know. We'll see if we can maybe figure something out. What do I need to do to fix this? Because the first stream, I'm pretty sure it went fairly well. I mean, there was only a dozen or so people in and out, but in terms of technical side of things, it seemed to go well. Then all of a sudden, the second one just isn't working. So this is the second time I've tried it now. And I do realise that I'm speaking to no one here. This is just for posterity, because this will be archived the same as any other live stream, I suppose. So I am looking around, trying to see if I can figure anything out. What I'm going to do as well, which is annoying, but I'm going to have to do it, is delete that Patreon post about the rescheduled time. I'm glad that this time around I didn't actually post it everywhere again. Last time I had to go through Facebook and Instagram, and I deleted all of the announcement posts just because it felt stupid having it up there for that. As I said, very well aware that no one is watching this right now. It is for posterity's sake as I try and fix some issues. But if anyone does stumble across it who was looking for the original stream, please feel free to let me know. We can still talk on here for a little bit, as long as the audio isn't awful. Just looking for this post to delete it. And I'm gonna have to, I don't know, I'm gonna have to recruit some tech wizards to try and fix my issues. What I'm assuming the issue is maybe I've just been a little bit overeager with all of the scenes and the transitions and stuff that I've added to my OBS. Can hear my wonderful Scouse accent loud and clear. Thanks, Darren. I appreciated that, bud. This is a tech issues stream where you get to listen to me poke around in my Mac and see what the issue is. But I'm assuming that I've been a little bit too ambitious and I've added too many transitions and stuff. Because I didn't have that on the first stream. I tried to make it look all pretty, have videos. I think maybe I just don't have the hardware for it. Which isn't the worst thing in the world, I suppose. It just looked really nice. I wish I could have shown people. Let's delete this post on Patreon so that I don't embarrass myself again. And as this is getting saved for posterity's sake, as it is being archived, I can still talk about a few things as well, I suppose. Yeah, the original point of the stream, funnily enough, wasn't tech issues. It was the allure of the strange. I've been working on a small booklet over the past few days called Psycho Wolf, which I realise is a dumb name, but I'm a big fan of dumb names. And it is essentially just a collection. I think there is 5 small effects that are in there. And these aren't big workers. They aren't big, powerhouse effects. There's no stage illusions. There's no super advanced mentalism. This is very simple, naturalistic experiences, which is a category, a subsection of mentalism and magic that I never really see getting too much love, besides from fellow weirdos, of which there are a few of us, but few and far between. As I recall from the times of that wonderful virus, Adam Wilber's Penguin Live had really good tips for streaming stuff with all that transition flashiness. Cheers, Darren. I'll have to check it out. I think when I test it again, perhaps I'm just gonna set it as a private video, and I'm just gonna stream to that, just to myself, and keep testing it over the course of an hour or two, and just see what settings I need to change to get it back to where it's running smoothly again. And that way, no one's gonna get any notifications about it, and it will just be me waffling on for a little bit to myself, purely to try and work out what issues I need to sort, what settings I need to downgrade maybe. Um, it isn't the greatest hardware, but it's only a few years old, this Mac, and the internet is pretty decent. So I'm not too sure. Well, maybe pretty decent isn't enough for streaming through software as opposed to just streaming directly through YouTube. Um, my bit rate's all messed up. There was stuff to do with encoders. This specific model of Mac, I think, has a different chip. I think this is just before they had a new chip. I don't know. I'm not an Apple fanboy, so I don't know too much about them. But that's the impression that I got from this. Um, the annoying thing is, because I'm streaming from my phone, I can't actually post anywhere that I'm logged in. Am I logged in anywhere on this Mac? I can open up the Discord and it'll take 20 minutes to open probably. The annoying thing about streaming from my phone is I had a really nice thumbnail that I've been wanting to use. If I do eventually sort it out, I'll get to reuse the thumbnail, I'm sure. It's all good. But yeah, the original talking point was this allure of the strange, and especially using really strange subject matter just as a plot or just as a hook and part of the overall experience. But how there are certain themes and there are certain, I don't know, plot points or elements, certain categories that I never really touched on too much when it comes to mentalism or magic. And they do originate more in the realm of mystical, which will be part of the reason. And the other part of the reason is, of course, not that many people are into the mystical side of things, which is something I've never ever got really, but there's no accounting for taste, I suppose. It's always really confused me the way people will say, "Oh, well, I want my audience to believe what I'm doing is blah blah blah, um, real, truthful," but then perform a gambling demonstration with cards, which is, I can't say it's one of the most interesting things to perform. But then again, it all does just come down to taste. But what interests me with the strange stuff is finding an audience that can actually not just relate to what it is that you are performing and talking about, because they might have their own interest in it, but their sense of reality might be skewed a little bit more towards the weird, which means that they'll come into something with, it might be a strange thing to say, but it is good to find a participant or a spectator that has the same amount of sincerity that you have performing. Talk about your hagstones and some plots who you would use that in. Well, as far as I can see from the little counter thing, Darren, it's just you here, bud. I'm just talking to myself and you're listening in. Um, I still haven't really came up with too many plot points to use the hagstones. There, there are a few things that I was working on using it as an omen of good luck. So when they are holding the hagstone, a little bit like in the Black Art podcast, we talked about jinxes. So when they are holding the hagstone, perhaps their luck changes. The dumbest way to the dumbest way to kind of explain that premise would be the trick that cannot be explained, and it's the moment that they take the hagstone is when the final card is left, or something along those lines, maybe. But that's not really how I would want to use it, I think. If I was to give a bad example in the other direction of what I would like to use it for, I think I put out an effect on YouTube, just a very small, simple effect. I can't even remember what it was called. I don't think it had a proper name, but it was a coin prediction effect that just used a very, very simple multiple out that looked, what's the right word? I don't know. It looked more convincing because there was another element to it. So I perform it either with a tarot deck or just a deck of cards. I have it set up both ways. And they would seemingly randomly select a card. It is the card I want them to select. And then they would flip a coin 3 times. And, you know, the outcome would be heads, 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 tails, 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 or heads, tails, heads, blah, 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 etc., etc. So if I was to use the hagstone with something like that, I think it would be, you know, like I've written down a prediction, and this hagstone is going to influence your luck, so that you're, you know, directly, your luck is directly responsible for my prediction coming true, kind of, if that makes sense. The other elements that I was thinking of with hagstones, and if no one knows what a hagstone is, it is essentially just a rock with some holes in. And I know that I'm addressing as if there is more people here. Um, it is more just a case of this is being archived. So if anyone does happen to watch this after the fact, and they're wondering what the hell are you talking about with hagstones, so they are known as hagstones or adderstones. I think I've seen them called something else somewhere. Maybe there was a Germanic name for them. And they're just believed to have magical properties. They can heal snake bites, see through the disguises of witches and fairies, and they are also meant to bring luck. They are supposed to be an omen. But the main purpose of being able to see through the disguise of a creature who is supernatural, who might not be up to any good, the process, the mechanism by which that occurs is looking directly through the stones of the hagstone. I, I can't be sure where my hagstone actually is. I did. This sounds stupid, but I purchased a hagstone for £5 because it was a very aesthetically pleasing stone, and you know, I couldn't be bothered going and finding my own, trudging through Yorkshire or wherever I would find it. I was reading something earlier, actually, completely unrelated to the hagstones, to do with YouTube, and it was someone saying that they got banned whilst they were testing their OBS. So I need to make sure, because twice, 2 or 3 times now, I've started a stream and then stopped it and deleted it and been messing about with it during the stream, and I just need to make sure I don't mess about too much in case YouTube flags me, which hopefully won't happen, but there's a definite possibility there. So next time I do it, I will 100% be doing it a much more simpler way, until such time as I can maybe grab some new hardware. Hey Matt, you okay, bud? No need to be sorry about being late. There was definitely some troubles. It was a little better than last time when I was running it from my Mac, but there was still something that was off about it, and whether that was the video quality messing with the bit rate, the encoding, there was some issues with the frame rate, the audio, once again, yeah, it fucked up, essentially. But I'm just working through some little tech stuff here, so I put my phone down and I thought I'll go live just for posterity's sake, and anything that I did actually want to talk about, I guess I can have a little waffle on here, regardless of if there is 1 or 2 or no people listening, just because it'll be archived after the fact, so someone might watch it. Maybe not something you want to cover on this, but how would you introduce our approach to the weirder side of mentalism without causing offence? E.g., how would you dip your toes in to test the water? So, strangely enough, the little booklet that I was talking about, Psycho Wolf, with 5 effects in, each of the effects that are in it tackle almost a different facet of this weird mystical mentalism. So one of them, the effect that the booklet is named for, Psycho Wolf, a lot of the... Sorry, one sec. The stream quality is fucking mint. What have you done different? Well, I'm just using my phone instead of using this Mac, Lloyd. I messed up all the transitions. I think I added too many effects. So it's just chugging along whenever I attempt it on the Mac. So I'm just using my phone for now whilst I try and fix some things, which definitely has a lot better quality, which does mean you can see my horrifically sweaty face. And yeah, it is working, Judah, just about, but you know, this is my phone, not the Mac, as I've been waffling on about for 15 minutes or so. Anyway, what was I saying? The Psycho Wolf effect covers this grand thesis of what would be the synopsis. It is, if there is something that I can imagine happening, if I can close my eyes and imagine it happening, then I can make it happen. And that's what the thesis for that chapter, that effect, is about. It's diamond. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. But the kind of the point behind the chapter for an effect called Cosmic Truth is about how you introduce this weird kind of mystical mentalism to an audience. So I can't talk about all of it on the stream, obviously, but that booklet should be finished off soon, and that specific chapter for that effect actually covers that exact kind of subject that you're talking about. And, you know, a lot of it is just feeling out, testing the waters yourself. I tend to, when I'm wanting to perform an effect that is a little bit stranger, a little bit more weird, yeah, I won't necessarily test the waters. I'll just play my cards close to my chest until I can find out whether someone is on side or not, if that makes sense. You know, this type of material plays best towards someone who is a little bit more skewed towards beliefs that, you know, might not be in the mainstream conscious. You know, they believe in ghosts, perhaps, or they believe in Reiki, energy healing, superpowered ninjas. Whatever their belief, I usually try and suss out someone's beliefs almost as a way to test the waters. And it's not in a condescending way, and it's not in a, you know, blah, blah, blah way. Yeah, it's just to test the waters. And if someone seems a little bit overeager when they hear about one of these strange kind of effects, sometimes they will not be the ideal candidate, because sometimes when someone is a little bit too overeager, it comes from them wanting to prove a point or make you look a little bit silly by volunteering themselves too quickly. Darren said, we'll be in and out here, about to drive to this gig. Need to buy a lotto ticket on the way just in case. If you know, you know. If you know, you do know, yes. Quality is fucking on fire. You know what? It's an old iPhone as well, but the camera is still quite decent. Jake, if someone was purely a close-up magician but had been practicing mentalism, what would be a good segue effect to perform in a set to transition from magic to mentalism? I mean, you're speaking to someone who does not claim to have any authority over performance as a worker. You know, despite however many gigs I might have done in the past, I do not class myself as any kind of authority. But if I was looking to segue between, you know, the playing cards or the visual stuff in the middle of a set, I think I would use the props at hand to perform something that might not necessarily be seen as a mystical kind of mentalism, or just a general kind of mentalism. But with the scripting, you've angled it more towards mentalism. So if you were to perform, you know, if you were to perform the trick that cannot be explained, but you are angling it psychologically or supernaturally, whatever kind of mentalism approach you're going to. But if you angle it psychologically, using the props that you've already been using in the first half, and just you're slowly switching out what the approach to the trick is and what the faux method is, but you're keeping the props, so you're not booking the horse, so to speak. You're not instantly jumping into, now let me put on this blindfold and I can read your mind. And any kind of simple card tricks like that, I mean, you only have to look at, there's a billion different books to do with self-working card tricks, where sometimes the plot that they have included is, it may as well be mentalism. There are excellent releases out there that present card magic as mentalism. Look up any, John Bannon or anything. Some of his stuff is perfect for that kind of segueing. And because you're only changing one element at a time, I feel like there's more leeway in the acceptance. Great answer. On air, come up with a mentalism theme, ship of thesis effect. Lloyd, go fuck yourself. Live on air, that kind of thing is daunting when I don't have my little scene partner with me. Although I would be more than willing to give it a go. Although this is a tech issues stream, Lloyd. We're talking about Mac software and hardware here. We're not talking about magic. This is me trying to figure out why OBS is such a... I was very quickly trying to think of like a pun to do with old dirty bastard, but who knows. A ship, just do it. You're a creative beast. I thought that said creative bear at first. I was thinking, missed the intro. Honestly, there was no intro. It was kind of just me turning this on and saying, my Mac's not working again. Sorry to everyone who tried to watch it. And me acknowledging that there is only going to be 2 people watching it. I'm in Devon, so just quickly dipping in. I know you're doing your due diligence as a friend, and I appreciate it. Don't worry. Those 3 viewers must be looking mighty intimidating to you. A ship of thesis effect. So we did briefly speak about this. Well, I'll say briefly. I think we've covered it maybe in 1 or 2 episodes of the Black Art podcast. And naturally, just as the way things do fall, naturally we leaned towards an approach that utilized playing cards. And I think we leaned towards, was there a Torn and Restored that we spoke about that kind of played around with the idea of ship of thesis or ship of Theseus? I think there might have been a TNR that we spoke about, unless I'm thinking about something else entirely. So the whole concept behind the ship of Theseus is, is this still the original if all the parts have changed? And it's kind of like that fact that you see floated around on the internet everywhere, which is, I think the figure is like 7 years. I don't know what it is. Every 7 years, every single cell in the human body is replaced completely. So every 7 years, essentially your entire body is completely different to what it was 7 years ago. When you were talking about Psycho Wolf, it made me think you could use it in conjunction with Ship of Theseus. Yeah, we ended up going for TNR, #boring. TNRs ain't boring, man. TNRs ain't boring. It's the way that TNRs are presented that is sometimes boring. But like, I love all of the work that you've done with TNRs. I really like Beyond Reform as well as a TNR. There are a bunch of just... I mean, what is the very first kind of like TNR trick that I learned as a kid? I think it was that one where it's where the cards are folded. How do you do it again? I'm pretty sure it's public knowledge. I don't know. I can't remember. Just where it's like the I remember learning that when I was super young and being obsessed with it. Where it's the two pieces like that, and then they join. I can't remember the fold that you're supposed to do it, but yeah, when they're presented correctly, I don't think there's anything wrong with a good TNR. Definitely not. And I've seen some that have been absolutely gorgeous, where that retention of vision just doesn't. There's no change whatsoever. Those are the really good ones. Like you can burn them, you can burn their hands, and you would swear that nothing had changed whatsoever. Sankey has a ton restored with folded cards. Yeah, Sankey's one is really good. I do vaguely remember the process behind that. If I'm remembering correctly, I think, yeah, I do remember. That's not the one I was speaking about a little bit earlier. Ah, yeah, no hate on TNR. I just meant it's the obvious plot to apply to ship a thesis to. Yeah, yeah, it is. So in the back of my head now, I'm kind of thinking, what other plot would you apply to it? My favourite is Madison's. I can't remember if I've seen Madison's TNR. I probably have at some point. He's probably uploaded 17 different variations of it, and they're probably all absolutely amazing. So when you see a TNR, or when you see this big kind of this huge category in Magic, it can be quite intimidating to try and come up with your own when there have been so many amazing ones. I love the thing you were saying then about every 7 years. Yeah, I don't know if that's actually true or if that is just a random fact that is floated about on the internet, but every 7 years, every cell in your body, um, is replaced. So 7 years from now, all of your body will be completely different. You will, in essence, be a completely different person. And if you're coming at this ship of thesis plot from mentalism as opposed to a TNR or something like that, what would you do? What would you do with that as a hook, or just as a, not necessarily an opening line, but an opening synopsis of what is about to happen? Where would that lead to? I guess. This does kind of tie in a little bit to some of the weirder effects I was speaking about at the start of this, where there's a lot of aspects of it that revolve around theatre of the mind and visualization and stuff like that. This isn't a direct connection, but it makes me think of something with energy and psychometry, says Judah. The 7 years cell regeneration idea, I mean. Oh, really? That's interesting. Maybe, yeah, maybe at a certain point in the cycle, energy levels are different or something. That could be interesting. It's like, I know that this is my 7th year in this current iteration of me. I don't know how you word that without it sounding very strange. So if it was, I don't know how anyone does this when they actually have, like 50,000 people watching, because whenever any single comment that comes up in the live chat has me actually trying to think of answers, and I just get completely derailed and forget what I was saying originally. I have no idea how you do this, Lloyd, when you have quite a lot of people watching. What kind of correlation do you see to psychometry, Judah? In regards to like the 7 year cell regeneration thing, what is the correlation that you see? Because if I can jam this out with some of you and not have to not have to make a fool of myself entirely, then that would be very good. Be very interesting. Or if you're bouncing in and out and you can't necessarily reply, no worries. I also have no idea what the delay is like. Okay, maybe you could ship a thesis for a card psych force, says Lloyd, and then Judah says, I think just the concept of physical regeneration equals regrowth equals spiritual changes, and that to me relates to psychometry. Okay, I see where you're going. Like, think of a card and now change it piece by piece. Or if it was a drawing, do... Ooh, Lloyd, wait a second. Oh. See, that's an interesting angle, because very often you do see when there is a force, this idea of ruling out specific shapes. And I can't go in necessarily to any specific methodology, but people know a lot of them anyway. But this idea of ruling out specific shapes by inclusion, or ruling out names or colours by inclusion, and the idea of having someone hop along through different thoughts and kind of, I don't know what the correct terminology is. So if you, if it was a drawing dupe, and you have someone change the image that's in their head piece by piece, if you present, okay, what have you said here? Imagine drawing a simple sketch out of simple lines like a stickman or a house. Now imagine moving a few of those lines one by one until there's a new image. Make sure it's universally recognizable. Yes, it's a super, super interesting premise. I can't... It would probably force them to think of only squarish sort of shapes. Possibly. Psych Magic says, psychic feeling, the history of the card, bringing them 7 years into their past, bringing them back to the present. It restores. That's cool. So they would avoid flowers and trees, etc. Says Lloyd, I bet they'd change from a house to a car or something. That is something that I would really, really be interested in testing. Originally, when you mentioned that concept, then the first thought that came into my head was, okay, imagine drawing an image on this square piece of paper that's just floating in the air in front of you. Imagine that you draw an image, just the first image that comes into your head. And then we're going to split this square into 4 parts. And now this upper corner here, I want you to wipe that clean, and I want you to draw something that would usually be in this upper corner. Maybe kind of like making them lean towards the sun, or something that would be in the sky, because you're specifically naming a corner. And this would be something that would be interesting to figure out, is if you are specifically naming one of the corners and you're having them wipe it out in their head and draw something that would fit in that part of the scene, then there might be things that people would more readily lean towards. So I'm not necessarily saying this is the case, but they might lean more towards painting a moon or a sun in their mind's eye in this image. And then you have the kind of really interesting concept of talking about, you know, this image is ripped into 4 pieces in front of you, and one of them's from a completely separate image. Just the premise alone, you've got some really cool things you can go with. Corner makes me think of chimney. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. I need to test. This is one of them things where, you know, when you ask someone to fold a card, or you ask someone to pick up a card 20 times in a row just so you can see what they actually do, I think it needs that kind of testing. And Judah says there is something interesting about how, according to the 7-year cell regrowth theory, arguably we're a completely different person every 7 years. So by thinking of something from your past, you are experiencing a sort of time travel, etc., etc. And that's how you can sort through their present thoughts versus their past thoughts to find what they're thinking of. Ooh, you're all much smarter than me. It is interesting, this idea that, you know, if you were to go back in time right now and speak to yourself 7 years ago, it would be a completely different version of yourself than you are now. Not just mentally, not just in terms of maturity, physically, it would be a completely different person. Biologically, it would be a completely different person, you know. And if that person were to go back in time 7 years and speak to someone, it would be a completely different person. And if you think about it this way, you know, depending on your age, you've had 3 or 4 lifetimes already where your body grows and dies, but just stays living. It stays on the same path. And there are a bunch of different things that you could do with that, where it's, you know, having them maybe go back to this 7 years ago, or go back to the 14 years ago, and how you can use it as anchor points in other performances. Past thoughts. One sec, let me scroll up here a bit. Going back to the 7 years thing, like Psych and Judah are talking about, you could be like, think of a card. Now, every 7 years, your cell change. What would a 7-year younger you think of? Yeah. That's perfect. Past thoughts stand out. So this is really interesting for Max Maven's Desire, Lewis Laval's Mana, Sean Dunn's Zoltar, etc. Similar effects. I love Zoltar. That's such a good beer garden effect. I think you could force an obvious card that way, as you could prime to think of a super random one now, but then you frame them to go for an obvious card 7 years ago. Ooh, Lloyd, that's a good way to force them to change their mind to a different card, and almost subtly to a lower card too. That's good thinking too. Yeah, that's interesting, especially if you emphasize the... I guess it would depend, maybe. You would emphasize the aspects of them that would be less mature at that point. So if this is someone who is quite obviously in their 30s, and you use this plot, this like scripting, then you would imagine them maybe as their mid-20s. So you would talk about that to put them in the frame of mind of 7 years ago. Which would maybe make them feel like, if you emphasize the fact that they have matured, that would maybe lean them towards picking a lower card if they're being their younger self, their past life. Like, you know, you're probably smarter now than you used to be. Think of the card that would catch me out. Now, what would a younger you go for, sort of thing? Yeah. Yeah, I think I mean, I don't know how transparent it is, but I feel like that would make someone jump from, you know, the 9 of clubs to Queen of Hearts or something. Oh no, my light went off. Judah says it also makes me think of a cartomancy reading integration, where different cards have correspondences to parts of your life, maturity, King versus Jack, and stuff like that. Yeah, if you kind of plant the seeds early on, maybe, about what represents maturity with the cards. Psych Magic says, or a representative drawing from their past, like Peter Turner's house drawing force, is cool. People will draw a tree on the bottom left or right corner. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a plot point that Pete uses fairly in maybe like 1 or 2 effects I've seen him, where it is angle towards someone making a simple drawing by emphasizing the fact that, you know, they must imagine themselves sitting in school and drawing. And I think Jake, I love the idea of mental tearing the paper into 4 pieces. Hear me out. Lloyd's about to cook. I'm listening. This is going to be such a mixed bag to have, like, left up as a video, because it legitimately started out me about to say, sorry, that stream didn't work. Can anyone help me with OBS? What if you were like, imagine a square piece of paper, tear into 4 pieces, now draw 4 simple images on each of the pieces. Is this 4 simple images that can kind of like make one, or is it 4 completely separate images that just apply to those quadrants, that are relevant to those quadrants? You're going to be almost 100% guaranteed to get one of the images, and you could have it, oh, predicted. Okay. Okay. You know, the other interesting thing, then they name all 4 or actually draw all 4. That is interesting. Then you can equivocate onto the prediction. Yeah, and there are a bunch of multiple outs that deal with 4 outcomes. So it's a real world, think of any image. And you know, stuff like that, the effect that you're predicted, stuff like that, I always enjoy, because if the effect is someone thinks of an image and you tell them what image they're thinking of, it's just too direct. Whereas you can preload this by saying, you know, think of this, you're thinking of any 4 images. If anything, there's not one direct image I can kind of latch onto. So this is making it harder for me. And then, you know, if I even get one of these images, I'm going to count it as a success. So being a little bit more humble with your approach to it, it always makes it feel more real feel like, oh, something actually might have happened there. It's not just, you know, I don't know what laymen go to. Peeking, that's what everyone goes for, that kind of stuff. The other thing I was thinking of with the image is, if you have these pieces torn into four, this is kind of an aside, this mental image of four torn pieces, and then have them draw an image on there. But you say, imagine you're drawing one image, but you're just drawing each corner of it. So because in their head they're imagining drawing each corner, I feel like they're going to go for something that's larger and more of a scene, as opposed to a football or a bike. I feel like because you're presenting it as four parts of the image, it almost feels like you'd have to go towards something that is more like a scene or larger. And also you could just go for other three written down, and if one, two, or all four hit, you're a miracle worker. Yeah, that would be a hell of an effect if you could get all four to hit. A hell of an effect. I'm just, I dread to think what the calculations would be to figure out how many variations. Say if you have the top five drawings that people always go for, and then you made multiple outs where you predicted all four correctly, how many outs would that be? Too many. Yes, I don't know where it's going, but I like the idea of saying draw one giant image over. That's a better way of phrasing it. Draw one giant image over the four pieces, but throw one corner away. Yes. Oh, dude. So I don't know where to go from there, but it feels appealing. Yeah, so if they're imagining drawing one giant image, and that's the wording that you go for, draw one giant image over these four pieces, and then I want you to just get rid of one of the corners, crumple it up in your mind and throw it away. And you're left with these three pieces. Where do you go from there? Because this is like, you're coming up with steps and you're coming up with process, because it's interesting and because you can feel that's the way it needs to go, but you just don't know why yet. You don't know what the intended effect is, kind of. Imagine burning one of the corner pieces, maybe the corner that feels natural to burn. Okay, like a chimney or a sun, or what would feel natural to burn? The corner, it's just a child drawn in the corner. And then what do you do with that? Chimney and sun for sure, yeah. So if you just had a piece of paper that you'd ripped into four, and then, you know, on one corner just drew a sun, put it in your top pocket. One corner drew a chimney, put it in your top pocket. I don't know what the other options might be. You know, a moon. No, you don't burn a moon, do you? Just like a campfire, maybe. If they were imagining like a house with like a fire pit outside or something. And then I would figure out what the other one is, and you have that. You have them all in four separate pockets, so they've imagined throwing away this piece from their giant imaginary drawing. And then you ask them what it is, and if they say sun or chimney, you say, you know, well, the implication is that you caught the imaginary piece they threw away or whatever, and it's in your pocket. And then you also add a little bit of a je ne sais quoi, and you have it lightly burnt on the edges. That's really, really fucking cool. I wish I could take credit for coming up with that. See, this isn't fair, man. You're coming on my little stream that's to 6 people, and you're showing me up. I really, really like that. There is something, potentially something there. Especially with this, I do like that idea of the way you phrased it was good. Draw one giant image over the 4 pieces. Just, I feel like you are more inclined to draw something that is a scene. I can't imagine someone drawing it, like in their mind, drawing a bike. I can't imagine them separating the bike into 4 pieces like that to draw. Maybe a boat, but I'm not too sure. I guess what you would have to play around with would be the language, and if it was each image, if you said to them something like, you know, each image needs to make sense in the context of the whole thing, or without the rest, you have to be able to recognize each part of the image. Or you could always say throw away the top right corner. Yes, that's much better. Then your chances of getting a sun or chimney would be massive. Yeah, I think you are correct. If people tend to go towards a house, then I think you are correct there. It definitely needs testing, because I mean, if that is the scene that people imagine in their head when you use that scripting, then there's a huge amount of options that you can go from there. But this idea of it being this mental, just a mental drawing, and it's one piece of the mental drawing, is super interesting. It reminds me a little bit actually of, I've been working on isolate, the effect that I've been working on it for a little while actually. The stuff to do with corners and drawings in that. So that kind of imagery is in my head a lot at the moment when I'm trying to finish writing it up. But I do think they would be more inclined to go towards a sun or a chimney. Definitely, I think you're correct. And that would be, I don't know how impressive. How impressive do you think that would be? Because it depends whether or not it is transparent what you're doing. It definitely just needs more testing. I'm going to try this out on a few different people, and I'm going to just use a quick, very simple multiple out, literally even just 4 pockets, if that. I would probably just try it with the 2 pockets, to be honest, to start off, just the sun and the chimney. Oh, if you use the PA to reveal. Yes. What would be, that's the thing with PAs. It's whether or not you could use cups. I think you could probably, if I'm thinking about chimney, I would probably have to think a second to remember how many letters are in it. So, but whereas sun, you're gonna know straight away. A cool thing could be that you have like 6 outs across 6 pockets, right? Then you say to them for the first time, what did you draw? They say like boat. Then you say, imagine taking that corner and placing it in my back. Yes. Oh, yeah, that's really good. That's really good, Lloyd. So you're it's almost like, you know, I said it was I said that's where it was before, you know, before it was even revealed almost. And then you reach straight in and pull out the match and reveal. That's so good. That's such a good little, oh, just a really nice subtlety. And they've got this correlation in their head now that, well, that's where he said it was going to be, so it's not like there's going to be others hidden elsewhere. Judah said, I was just about to say cups, then based on the response, you can choose a simple PA for each set of words, possibly even with only one no required. Yeah, you 100%. It also falls down to how many options there actually is, because maybe it would be worth me trying to just actually test what all the options could be, because I'm thinking of things, but I don't know if they're obvious or whether that's just because I'm trying to think of something that I'm coming up with ideas. You know, like little birds, but I don't think anyone would actually draw that. That's just me looking for what could the other potentials be. I think it is essentially just sun and chimney. You know, maybe an airplane, even an airplane. I'm not sure. Psych Magic says, have them think of two simple shapes that can make up one image from their past. Now they fill in the details around the image, then they tear that image into four pieces and choose one. Yeah, if you were wanting to get into the general setup using like techniques with the shapes, I literally I used that 2 or 3 days ago. Just when I was demonstrating some of the techniques used in drawing duplications, but I mean it's a pretty surefire kind of thing. Yeah, and especially if I mean that getting them into specifically drawing that using lines such as that, um, you could then use the angle of the 7 year salve regeneration thing as the premise of this. Um, yeah, that would be quite interesting because then you could do the whole jumping around thing where it's, you know, imagining what yourself, 7 years previous would have drawn. I got to head out, but I will definitely watch the rest of this back once it's done. Thanks, guys. This was a lot of fun. No worries, Judah, dude. Probably won't be on too much longer, to be honest with you. Lloyd says, also, you could have one out being something that is sort of indistinguishable in the bottom of the torn corner piece, and the rest mainly blank. You could then say it may not look exactly like you pictured it, but it is the same thing. Yeah, you've got to have you've got to have one little gaff novelty one. I mean, I was gonna go with just a little cock or something, but that probably works better. Just a indeterminate shape. There is Banachek has the universal out, which I'm not gonna draw or anything, but it is a universal out that somehow looks like everything. you can you can interpret it as many different things. But if you were to just let me see, where's a corner? I actually have a half drawing of house here pre-done. Yeah, so if you were to pull out this piece, and then that's interpreted as the house, you could probably get away with this being a boat, the sail. So you've stumbled across what might be a really cool idea there, Lloyd. Because also there's probably a way to draw that where that looks like a bicycle. It kind of looks a little bit like it now. There's probably, I mean, I can see a world where you could maybe draw it so that it looked like a smiley face or something. Psych Magic says, I've done this for my psych classes, limiting their choices by eliminating circles and 8% to draw a house, a square, and a triangle. Yep, they do, dude. In the initial kind of scripting, you limit what they can choose, and you get rid of circles just by mentioning it. Limiting by inclusion. Yeah. Also, it's the window of a car. Yes, that could very. Oh, yes, that could very easily be the windshield of a car. Ambiguous images and part of a plane. Oh, dude. Especially if you fill the rest of the drawing in on a napkin to show them the rest of the drawing. Yes. Oh, dude. Like what? You don't recognize it? Let me show you. You know where that works? Where that would work really well, Lloyd? And everyone else, obviously. I'm just getting into the jamming mindset now. If this still used an ambiguous image, right? But what you do is you place it, and it's a prediction right there, like not necessarily a big open prediction, but you have placed it down and said it is the prediction. It is in the table. I'm not going to go anywhere near it. I've torn it. Combined with a PA beforehand, this would 100% work. Yeah. Well, what I was going to say was, if you've already placed the prediction down, but then just use any traditional peak technique, whether that is billets or wallets or digital means, then you can kind of I feel like that would be more convincing if you then say, you know, this is only a quarter of the image. You show it to them. You say, does it look like what you had in mind? No. Let me show you. Before you even knew what you were drawing, I knew what you were going to draw, and then you draw in the rest. So the piece has been there the entire time, and then you found out what they're going to draw. And instead of just being you found out what they're going to draw and you replicate it, it's I knew what you were going to draw ahead of time, and now I'm showing you how it lines up without seemingly knowing what it is. If you have one corner that has like a curved line in the corner, another just like the one you have there, a fully blank one, and one that has rays from a sun coming out. Oh yeah, a peak, amazing thinking. Yes, Jake, thank you, buddy. Yeah, so if you just do any kind of normal billet peak, um, but you've already placed your prediction, so the peak, maybe you can get away with more obvious peaks because of that. You've already said what is going to happen, so you get away with your peak, and then you just fill in the blanks to show them. And I'm trying to think what so the plot line, the premise, well, how you get into the effect could just be, you know, the old kind of like I woke up in the night, or you know, before I left the house to come meet you, I drew something, and it was a prediction, blah blah blah, and then annoyingly, fiddling about in my pocket, I tore up a receipt and I didn't realise that I ripped up the rest of the image. So I only have one corner from the image, but you'll be able to tell that I got the prediction correct. Name for this effect: drawn and quartered. Oh, it's too close to the keyring effect that's not long came out, but it's perfect. Annoyingly, it's more perfect than that. Lol, says Matt Dean. I hope work's going okay, Matt. I know you said you weren't going to be able to watch, but you could maybe listen. So thanks for showing up. I know that there is only 4 or 5 people here, but hopefully after the fact it will be interesting for some people to watch. I'll have to put a disclaimer wherever I post it, just saying, you know, skip to 13 minutes, because before that it's just Jake moaning about how there's something up with the streaming software. I can't think of a better name than drawn and quartered, but annoyingly it's too close to something that's already out. What about are there any effects called quadrant? That's kind of cool. God, I don't know. I have to think way too long about names, just because I'm very faffy with them. It could be that you drew a prediction and gave a piece to 3 people, and oh, Lloyd, dude, I drew an image that I was going to make you think of, and I've done this 3 times today now. I ripped it into 4 pieces, and I got the other, you know, I ripped it up into 4 pieces. I've performed it 3 times before today. The 3 other times I was completely correct. I've got the last corner. Let's see if I'm correct again. And I forced all 4 of you to think of the same image. And you can think that you're switching your mind. You can think that you're changing your mind. But let's see what happens. Listening mostly. Did I ever ask you about doing a live stream and making an ebook in Canva from concept to completion? You know what, you might have mentioned maybe me talking about it in a video or something, but I would be more than happy to do a live stream on it, maybe when I've got my bloody hardware and software and stuff sorted out. But I'm more than down to show you how I make my little ebooks. I know a lot of people seem to enjoy the aesthetic of them. Someone else drew an image of, and that's why you couldn't simply redraw it, so you tore it into 4. Yes. Oh, dude, you could do it like it's a chain. Like, how would you do it? So, like, the first person, you predicted what the first person was going to draw. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'd watch a live stream on your ebook process because they're amazing. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Damn, Lloyd, that's sick. It is a very sick idea. I'm annoyed that it's such a good idea. Where would you go? So someone else drew the image. Oh my god, dude. Here we go. I don't know if you're supposed to be on holiday or visiting family or something, Lloyd, but I'm sure they're very happy that you're sitting there on your phone watching a live stream. Show them the pieces beforehand. Show them the piece beforehand. Yes. Yes. Even if it was just a quick flash. And say, you fill in the other 3 pieces. Then reveal afterwards that the person drew the same thing. Do you not... Well, I guess it depends how recognizable it is. You could say this could be a car, a house, a plane, etc. But saying that, is that like preemptively getting rid of the effect of it matching? But I'm going to let you decide. Or do you mean this is like kind of a separate effect? And then you would have different multiple outs? Then you use one of their pieces to continue the train. No, dude, it's not shit. That's not what I'm saying. You feel it. Yes, please. Spitball all you want, mate. I appreciate it. I'm shy at holding people's attention and talking. Just love your idea of creating a train. Dude, it's an idea that's stolen from you. From, what was the effect called? Time Portal? I can't remember. Was it... I can't remember, was it your idea or Rory's idea that it was this chain that keeps happening with people? If you remember the effect I'm talking about, it was in your notes for Blackpool. Oh, that's just made me think. Does what's it called? Does anyone know the game Exquisite Corpse? Which sounds like the title of a splatterpunk novel. But Exquisite Corpse is the game that you probably played when you were a kid. Which is essentially what this is. So, so you have a piece of paper that's folded up. Someone draws the legs of a monster or a person, and someone draws the knees, and without looking at the other person's. So when it's pulled apart, it's a complete image. Take care, dude. If you're on holiday or seeing family, enjoy yourself. Thank you for helping out with my 2 viewers. I really appreciate it, man. Love you too, dude. Catch up soon. Enjoy yourself, whatever you're up to. But yeah, this game, Exquisite Corpse, people used to play it with writing, where it was, you know, write the first line of a story, someone writes the second line, but they're only allowed to look at the joining word. So, you know, if they know the last sentence finished with "and," then that's how they carry on their sentence or their little segment. Keep this jam going and I'll catch the rest later. We'll see how long it lasts, dude. You were kind of holding the flame there for me a little bit, so we'll see how long I can go with it. But yeah, the most common way that people would do it is someone draws a head, then that's folded up. Someone draws the shoulders and maybe the top of the chest, it's folded up. Someone draws, you know, the thighs and the waist, and then someone draws the ankles down to the feet. And then you'd unfold it and it'd be this weird, you know, Frankensteinian kind of monster. And I do not know when it originally came about, but I know it was like kind of a parlor game thing that people would do. If you picture some kind of, I don't know, like, 19th, 18th century parlor game that people would play, and this was what classed as entertainment. But so this is almost along those lines. And what would be interesting, just in general, what would be interesting is seeing what people would draw. Um, if they were told they were only drawing part of an image, and it had to line up with what someone else was going to draw or what someone else has drawn. For the purpose of an effect, obviously they will probably have to be the end in that chain. Um, but depending on how it is plotted, depending on what the overall premise is, you could say, you know, no, I want you to draw something else completely different and give me a corner torn off from it, and I'm gonna keep this chain going on. I'll let you know how it goes. But they're just part of that one effect, but they think they're part of this larger thing. How would you work around it? How would you set up this effect? I'm trying to think of the exact wording that you would use, because theoretically you could go out and at least experiment with this at the very least. So I asked someone to draw an image, or I drew an image, and then I tore it up into 4 pieces. Yeah, I tore it up into 4 pieces. Um, is this is it impressive? I can't tell if it is impressive or not. The original concept that of this the ambiguous image that Lloyd was talking about is where there is a lot of potential. The idea that this could be one corner of a house, or it could be one corner of a boat, or it could be a bicycle, or it could be an airplane wing or whatever. Sorry, quick review. Sorry, Matt, what do you mean? The original premise that we were playing with, where this came from, was this idea of an ambiguous image. Um, and I do like, I can't pinpoint which avenue, sorry, on the effect which you were doing. We were just jamming an idea out, man. We were just jamming an idea. So originally it started with Lloyd bringing up the idea of ship of Theseus, or ship of Theseus, however it's pronounced. Um, and then we were talking about this idea of, imagine you have a piece of paper in front of you, and then it's torn into 4 pieces. And if you were to draw one giant image that goes over all 4 pieces, and then we're going to get rid of the top right corner and throw it away. The original effect that we were kind of brainstorming was that if you set this up, if you preload them with this idea that an image has to go over these 4 separate pieces of paper, they may be more inclined to picture a scene as opposed to a smaller image. So the most immediate scene that they may be more inclined to go towards would be a house. And if you're getting rid of one of the corners, then you can be pretty certain that there would probably be a sun or a chimney there in their mind when they're drawing this image. So if they've gotten rid of that piece, you would then only need a couple of outs to potentially figure out, present to them as, I've got the piece that you drew in your mind and threw away. When I ripped up an image of a house, I was left with this kind of thing. And what that led into was the idea that this could be, in a similar vein to Banachek, this could be a fairly ambiguous image. So if I was to show this to someone after they had drawn a picture, I could say to them, Yeah, and like, you know, I drew it before. I drew a picture beforehand, a prediction, but it was torn into four pieces. And look, this is the corner of the house that you've just drawn. Or you say to them, um, or you say to them, this is the corner of a boat that you've just drawn. We were just playing around with this idea that this could be ambiguous because maybe that could be part of a bicycle, or maybe it could be part of an airplane. But this ambiguous imagery led us to the idea that it would be interesting to have the four corners supposedly be part of the whole effect. If you were to say that I had someone draw a picture for me, and I ripped it into four pieces, and I've presented three other people today with one of the pieces, and either with or without looking, I'm still not sure on that. But this prediction could be placed down in front of them, and then they would draw an image. When you turn it over, you can say, you know, this is part of your image. You can maybe draw in the rest of it just to show them. Oh, dude, I've just thought of it. I've just thought of what the idea is. You show them the original image on your phone. So it would take a little bit of doing, but you could load up a lot of multiple outs. So if they draw an image or whatever, you know they've drawn a house, and you say, this is what I predicted you'd draw. And maybe they're looking at it thinking it is a bit ambiguous, they're not too sure what it is. But then when you pull up on your phone, you pull up a picture where it's the four pieces next to each other, and it shows that it was originally an image of a house. Or you pull up the picture and it shows, yes, that piece originally was a picture of a boat. So if you just kind of, yeah, if you just, if I figure out what this ambiguous image, what the best construction of this ambiguous image is, then I think fairly quickly I could go through the most obvious suspects and draw up three other torn pieces that match to that image, get rid of them, draw up another three pieces that match to a different image, so that whatever they draw, I can show them. The prediction has been in front of you the whole time. No one's touched it. It was a house like you drew. And I'll show you an image of what it originally looked like before I tore it or before I gave out the four pieces. I think that's where the effect should go. I think because there is no arguing that the pieces on the table in front of you. There's no arguing with that. And there's no reason for them to suspect that there is there'd just be no reason. Like, you're showing them what the image originally was. Now, whether that is already torn or whether that is still whole, it depends. I'm gonna play around with it because there is a lot of fun to be had there, I think. That being said, I don't want to just jam with myself. It seems a little bit too close to masturbation. And there is only one person watching this stream who may or may not be someone just popping in and out. And the crux would be ensuring the image on the corner is ambiguous enough to be multiple things. Yes, essentially. So you are pointing them in the direction of certain imagery in whatever kind of suggestion or influence you want to use to do that, or just the inbuilt suggestion of this is a simple image. And the crux is that this is ambiguous enough that it could potentially be a lot of different things, and then you would have multiple outs to show that it really was whatever they have drawn. And what we spoke about a little bit was this, instead of taking away from, this could potentially add to a peak. So if they have drawn on a billet what they're drawing, you've got this piece left. It's just openly a prediction. They know you're not messing with it. And then if you do actually peek their drawing, when you turn it over and show it to them, you say, does it not make sense to you? Does this not look like the image you had in your mind? No, okay, let me show you. You put this down on a piece of paper and you finish off the drawing. And obviously they don't know that you've peeked, but because this lines up with the drawing that they've made, now the drawing that you've made as well. I think it actually enhances just a peaked drawing duplication. But all that being said, my phone is on very, very low battery and I don't want to hold it up. It was balanced up, but because I'm charging it, I can't balance it. Psych Magic says that's rad. Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I'm not going to take any credit for that because I think that was pretty much all Lloyd. But I am going to bounce now. Hopefully, next time I'll be able to figure out the hardware and software so that we can do this properly, so that I can have all my cool transitions and stuff. But for now, this will do. This has been lovely. I appreciate people showing up. I know that there's only a few of you here, but maybe people will watch this after the fact. And if they do, thank you for watching. And take care, everyone. Much, much appreciated. Now you get to watch me slowly figure out how you work this, because I don't think I've ever used YouTube Live on my phone. Thanks, Jake. No, thank you, dude. I appreciate you joining in and showing up. It was genuinely really appreciated. So I am going to bounce now. Take care, guys. All the best.